Everyone's here. So welcome everyone to the June 14, 2023 meeting of the Planning Commission of the Town of Los Gatos. The meeting's now called to order. And as we begin the meeting tonight, as we always do, I request staff to make a presentation regarding the town's rules of decorum and civility.
The public is welcome to participate in the meetings, understanding that the purpose of the meeting is to conduct the important business of the town in an efficient and effective manner. For the benefit of the entire community, the town of Los Gatos asks that all speakers follow the town's meeting guidelines by treating everyone with respect and dignity. This is done by following meeting guidelines set forth in state law, in the town code, and on the cover sheet of the agenda. The town embraces diversity and strongly condemns hate speech and offensive hateful language or racial intolerance of any kind at board, commission, or committee meetings. Town council and staff are well aware of the public's right to disagree with their professional opinion on various town issues. However, antisocial behavior, slander, hatred, and bigotry statements are completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated in any way, shape, or form at board, commission, or committee meetings. All public comments at the board, commission, or committee meeting must pertain to items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the town and shall not contain slanderous statements, hatred, and bigotry against non-public officials. The town will go through the following steps if a disturbance results from a member of the public not following these rules. If participating remotely, town staff may mute the individual with an explanation for the record of why muting occurred consistent with this policy. If participating in person, the chair may call a recess for violation of this policy, resulting in the immediate cessation of the audio and video recording and the commissioners exiting the chamber or meeting room. Staff will determine if the individual should be removed or if all members of the public should leave, depending on the extent of the disturbance. In the event that all public members exit, only the press would be allowed back in the meeting. Once the individual or individuals leave, the commissioners would return to the chamber or meeting room and the chair would resume the meeting. Persons disrupting a board, commission, or committee meeting may be cited for violation of the California Penal Code, Section 403.
Thank you for that. So we'll proceed to the roll call, and we'll begin with Vice Chair Raspy.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
You're there. Commissioner Janoff.
Here.
And I'm here as well. As far as Commissioner Clark appearing on Zoom, I understand you want to make a statement relating to your participation.
Yes, I'm taking this meeting from Inverness as I am traveling and there are no adults in the room, or there's no one in the room with me.
Okay, thank you for that. And now we'll ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Hanson will lead us tonight.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as usual, I have a few preliminary remarks to make before the meeting begins. Any person desiring to speak must first be recognized by the chair. All participants must speak only from the mic or when called on in Zoom. All public comments shall be directed to the commission as a body and not to the audience. No person other than commissioner, staff, and the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into the discussion. All members of the appellant's team shall be heard as a group within the stated 5 and 3 minute time limits applicable to Agenda Item 2. Questions by the members of the commissions do not count against that time. No member of the public is allowed to speak a second time, and to assure the opportunity for all those desiring to speak before the commission, there's no yielding of time to another speaker. So as the Planning Commission conducts its meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public, which is essential to democracy and to the important work of the Planning Commission. Public input is very much welcomed and is always considered. The public participation can occur in several ways. Written comments about agenda items may be submitted to the staff prior to the meeting, and during the meeting there are two opportunities for members of the public to address the commission. The first is during verbal communications. An individual may speak on any topic that is not on our agenda for tonight. And during the hearing on our agenda item 2, any member of the public may speak about that item. If you wish to address the commission tonight during either verbal communications or when we consider agenda item number 2, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. Or for those here in person, complete a speaker card located in front of you and turn that into staff. When you speak, I ask that you come to the microphone and speak directly into it as the meeting's being recorded. Also, when you are called to speak, please state your name and address for the record, or indicate if you are speaking anonymously. In fairness to all who wish to speak, it is necessary that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. So we'll now move on to verbal communications, and here members of the public are allowed to address the commission on any issue not on the agenda for tonight's meeting as indicated, and staff will indicate when your 3-minute time limit is up. Mr. Paulson, do we have any members of the public on Zoom?
We do not.
And I don't have any cards, so we'll move right along. The consent calendar tonight consists of one item being the approval of the minutes of our meeting of May 24th. Before the Planning Commission acts on the consent calendar, any member of the Commission may request that this item be removed. Are there any such requests? I don't see any. So do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Commissioner Respy.
Chair, I move to approve the consent calendar as presented, please.
Thank you. Second? Commissioner Thomas?
I second.
Any discussion? I'll call the question and we'll call the roll tonight. Commissioner Hanson?
Yes.
Commissioner Respy?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
And Commissioner Janoff?
Yes.
And I vote as well, so yes. We will now move into the public hearing portion of our agenda and consider agenda item number 2, which is the consideration of an appeal of the Community Development Director's decision to deny a fence height exception request for construction of an automated vehicle gate, exceeding the maximum height and with the reduced setbacks on property zoned R18, located at 380 Blackwell Drive, APN 424-12-027. Fence height exception application FHE 23002. Property owner is Larry Sesnick and Martha Johnson, and the appellant is Larry Sesnick. The applicant is Ramin Zuhur, and the project planner is Sean Mullen. I note that the staff indicates that the appeal tonight is categorically exempt from CEQA under section 15303E. New construction or conversion of small structures, and that if the appeal is granted tonight, a finding is required to be made regarding the application of an exception to the town's fencing ordinance. May I have a show of hands by the commissioners who have visited the property? Thank you. And are there any disclosures? I don't see any. So Mr. Mullen, why don't we proceed with your staff report, if you will.
Thank you and good evening. For your consideration tonight is an appeal of a director's decision denying an exception to the fence regulations for a new vehicular gate at 380 Blackwell Drive. Located on the corner of Blackwell Drive and National Avenue, the subject property is developed with a single-family residence and an attached ADU. Existing legal non-conforming fencing encloses the outdoor spaces on the property except for the driveway area. The property owner installed a sliding vehicular gate at the front property line without the benefits of permits to enclose the driveway area, and the property owner was contacted by the town and requested to submit a building permit for this vehicular gate. During review of that permit application, planning staff noted that the vehicular gate exceeded the 3-foot height limitation for gates located in the required front yard setback area and the traffic view area, and does not meet the required 18-foot setback as measured from the edge of the street. On February 6th of this year, the property owner applied for a fence height exception for the vehicular gate. The letter of justification cited safety concerns related to the illness of a child residing on the property and the need to prevent them from stepping off the property. Staff was unable to make the required findings to grant the exception, and on March 6th, the town denied the request, recognizing that the property is already enclosed by existing fencing and gates except for the driveway area, and that the vehicular gate creates unsafe conditions caused by the gate lacking the 18-foot setback and its proximity to the intersection of Blackwell and National. On March 8th, the property owner appealed this decision based on the justification provided with the exception request. Staff's analysis finds that the reduced setback of the gate would not allow for vehicles to clear the travel lanes while queuing, potentially obstructing traffic on Blackwell Drive near the intersection with National Avenue. The added queue time adjacent to the intersection is considered a nuisance and an unnecessary risk. Based on the analysis provided in the staff report, staff recommends denial of the appeal, upholding the decision of the director to deny the exception to the fence regulations. A desk item was distributed this afternoon that includes additional information related to the safety concerns of the property owner. In addition to planning staff, engineering staff is also in attendance tonight to address any questions of the commission, and this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. So I'll turn to the commissioners and ask if anyone has a question for staff. Commissioner Hanson.
I noted in Exhibit 8, thank you, that was very helpful, that the gate is 13 and a little few inches into the property. So if the gate was moved back 5 feet, would they be allowed to have that height of a gate?
Thank you for the question. The gate, even if moved back 5 feet, would still be located in the required front yard setback area, which has a height limitation of 3 feet, and it would also be limited in the traffic view area, which is measured from the adjacent corner of National and Blackwell.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions of staff at this time? There'll be an opportunity later, of course. Okay, so we'll now open the public portion of the public hearing and give the applicant an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. And who will be speaking for the appellant tonight? Thank you. If you state your name and address, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission and Chair. My name is Lawrence Chesney. You can call me Larry. I am the resident at 380 Blackwell Drive here in Los Gatos. And I really would want to keep this fairly brief, but obviously open to any questions you've got. I think my major theme here is safety, not only for our son, but also of the citizens of the town of Los Gatos. If you can move to the next slide. Again, the request for the exception is for safety reasons, okay? It's the safety of our son. We have a young adult son, Martin, who really, there's a couple points that are really important to bring in here. Number one, and you'll see a photo in a minute, the ADU that's on the property directly faces the driveway in the street, and actually across the street, as you may have seen, those who've gone there, is a tower area. Our son, who has the condition of autism, he has very low safety awareness, and he does need to be watched when he's outside. He is also a very physical guy. He's at summer camp right now, and he's having a great time, but he does move quickly, and so he can quickly reach the sidewalk. He can reach the street and that electric tower area without a barrier. So that's actually why we built the gate, because we need that gate to prevent any kind of unexpected bolting. So that's safety for him, our son, Martin. Also, it's safety of citizens of Los Gatos, because if indeed he were to get out into the street area or the sidewalk area, obviously there are motorists there, there are pedestrians there, and cyclists there, and pets and so forth. So it's not just his own safety, but I think it's the safety of the people and animals that would be walking or driving by. Okay? Just to give you a sense, some of you have been out to the property already, but you can see that where the gate, obviously it's open, it's not closed now, but if closed, it would block that driveway, which leads to the sidewalk and into the street. And then the right side view is is out towards the street and in that yard area around the electric tower at near the intersection of Blackwell and National Avenue. Yeah, that's just give you a visual sense of it. Here we have a letter from Martin's primary care physician, Dr. Chowdhury, who it's a little bit small font to read here, but it's in the record. So essentially what she is saying here is, he does have this condition. A lot of the folks with this particular condition don't necessarily have a high safety awareness. We're really working on it a lot, but it's something we just cannot fully control. And so this is our way of trying to say, hey, can we put a barrier there of some kind that's will at least slow him down. And then I think the next page, really, next couple pages are just some excerpts. He's a client of the San Andreas Regional Center, and he, like other consumers there, has an individualized program plan. We're not going to show the whole plan. There's a lot of private information in there, but what we've highlighted in yellow is the word safety, because it comes out a lot of times in terms that's an issue. So it's an issue that he has. It's an issue that we're working on. It's an issue that we're setting goals for him to try to achieve. Nonetheless, it's a long process. It's a lifelong process for him to get there. And I think the second page has just some additional plans and goals in his individual program plan. He's had similar, we have other documentation as a student. He's now working in an adult day program in San Jose, but through his non-public school career at a couple schools in Redwood City and in Santa Cruz, that's also been on his individualized educational plan, his IEP. I think those are really all of my comments. I'm very happy to answer questions, but again, it's twofold safety: safety for our son, safety for citizens of the city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sesnick, and I'll turn to my fellow commissioners to see if they have any questions of you. Commissioner Hanson.
I was just curious, the fence is about 4 feet or so. What's preventing your son from going over the fence?
It's a great question. There's no solution. We can't put up a 20-foot fence, obviously, and so he's a physical guy, but it's really not. The assumption here is that there's going to be someone on the property. He will never be at home by himself, and so it's actually to prevent him from doing a bolt when an adult may be right around the corner there. But if he had a fence that was taller and he tried to climb it, yeah, that might also slow him down a little bit more. But having a fence there of that size and magnitude, will at least have him stop and think, slow him down enough so that an adult can get there.
Have you had any instances where he was able to climb over the fence? Okay.
No. As a matter of fact, he hasn't lived in this property a very long time. One of the reasons being, we have another property that we're in the process of transitioning out of as well. So we're citizens, we're residents of Los Gatos. One of the reasons, frankly, he hasn't full-time come in there because we're still having to resolve this issue. But in other properties that we've had similar setups. Again, we've been able to use those kinds of, let's call them demotivators, to prevent him from getting too far, whether it's a gate or some other kind of barrier.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that comment. Commissioner Jenoff.
Thank you. So I'm curious about the purpose of the vehicular gate. The driveway the ADU doesn't have any driveway facing windows or doors or access, right? So it's just a plain wall. So effectively, the driveway is a parking area. You have a fence with a gate that tees into the corner of the ADU that faces National Avenue, and you have one that comes parallel to the street that the driveway access is on. So that's containing your property along with the perimeter fences. So my question is, what's the purpose of the gate? What's the use of that area, and what are you trying to achieve? If you could answer that.
Yeah, exactly. I think two things. Primarily, the reason for the gate is, again, for the safety of our son. And what I would say is, yes, it doesn't look like there's a clear path from the ADU right to the street, but in reality, there is. We actually did not put a door or window in that front for that. We wanted to make that as safe as possible. There is a door around the side, which is, you really can't see it in that photograph very well, but it's really quick for him to come down there. So essentially, even though he can't break through the wall and go right out there, it's just a few feet more for him to be able to access that. So that's the first reason. It is actually those several feet that the gate would enclose is the only open area around our property now. Okay, so yes, we do have the picket fencing and other stone features there. So it's the area that actually is close, it's open, it's actually the closest to the ADU, even though it's sort of a side entrance. The second reason would be, and this is the reason we're not asking for a solid bulb, because we are adults that live and work, and so we actually do need to get our cars. You're right, we do park our cars there. That was a garage that the ADU is now, but we need to actually get back and forth. So it was our practical solution to be able to open it up only when we needed to get in and out and keep it closed the rest of the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions by commissioners? Commissioner Espy.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chesnick, first of all, thank you for coming this evening and sharing information. I know it's difficult for sharing information, but thank you. It makes our decision-making
Sure.
all that much better. So really, we're considering, I think, two things here tonight, both the height of the fence and the location of the gate as well. As to the location, is there a way you could move the gate back approximately 5 feet, as Commissioner Hanson said, still retain a closed-off area, but allow enough room that cars could queue up without sticking out into the streets? Essentially, could you move the gate back 5 feet?
I think the answer is almost anything is possible architecturally. We'd have to talk to our builders and our architects. So I can't answer the details. Conceptually, I think that's possible. May I ask the commissioners a question to make sure I understand the idea of the queuing? Because that's what I'm not totally clear on. Is it okay for me to ask that question or not? I don't want to. I want to follow protocol here, so I can fully answer your question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think
let me
you
explain
clarify his question.
what I believe
Yep.
Yeah.
is I'm asking. So my understanding is, if the queuing is, we need enough room, or the town wants, and staff, please correct me if I'm wrong, while the gate is opening, what the town is trying to avoid is any portion of the car backing out into the street, because the gate is a slow-opening gate in most instances.
okay.
And the concern is that the remainder of the car stays in traffic while the gate is opening. And as a result, the town has instituted, I believe, an 18-foot setback to avoid that circumstance. And your gate is currently in violation of that 18-foot setback. Staff,
okay.
do I have that about right? So if you move
Yeah.
the gate back to that 18-foot mark, it would solve one of your problems.
Thank you. That helps clarify it. And maybe, to me, one of the other logical solutions would be, if I'm understanding correctly, not being a person who's necessarily in a hurry to get out, right, would be to make sure the gate is fully open before we even try to back the car out. To me, that would simulate how I would back the car out if I didn't have a gate at all. If that's logical.
I appreciate your answer. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Commissioner Clark, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Yes, and sorry that I'm on Zoom.
Sure.
I wish I were there in
No
person,
problem.
but yeah.
Okay.
And I have two questions. So first, I was just wondering, how long have you had the gate?
The gate has been there for, I think, at least a year. I don't know the exact amount of time, but it's whenever we received a violation, and the commission probably has a closer idea, but many months ago, it's been there, but it's obviously been open. It hasn't been in functioning. So
Okay.
maybe the commission can help, or the town can help with the dates. Probably around a year or more.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is just how often is the gate open versus closed? Because I know when I did my site visit, it was open and it's open in those pictures.
Oh, right now, unless someone has a magical way to get to our control 100% of the time, because we're trying to comply with the notice that we received.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that.
Yep.
Okay, still looking for other questions. Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, and thank you for coming tonight. So my question is, and I think what my biggest concern is, National Avenue is a fairly well-traveled road, and if you're turning onto your street and you are parked there to go into your driveway and the gate is closed, there is a time when your car, because the average length of car, I think, is like 16 feet, 15 and a half to 16 feet. So part of the car would be in the roadway. And I think that's more my concern, that as cars coming around the bend, you're wanting to go into your driveway, the gate is closed, you're waiting, and there's traffic coming by, and you're in the roadway. So that would,
Yes, understand the,
oh, how would you
yeah.
answer that?
Yeah, understand the question, thank you. I would answer it using the same approach that I mentioned to the chair, the vice chair, which is the control does have quite a bit of distance on it. And so we as the homeowners, if we're granted this exception, could commit to practicing the following. What I said a few minutes ago regarding leaving, waiting until it's fully open. And when we're entering, we could activate the gate at a distance, and that is, it's got a pretty good distance on it, so that it would be fully open before we arrive there, thus avoiding the backup that you're expressing.
You have a further question?
Yes, thank you. Further question. So if you had a visitor that didn't have an automatic gate opener, or they had to wait there, didn't have the quick access that you have,
Right.
how would you handle that?
Yeah, at this point, given the logistics, we do not have a lot of space for guests anyway, so we would be asking them to park on the street or make other arrangements. That would be the normal process, just because it's complicated. Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, thank you for coming and sharing all of this information and tonight. I really do appreciate it, and I feel like you've been very thorough, and it is well appreciated. My question is just that if a special security concern does exist, which you feel like, I think that's part of what you're presenting tonight, do you feel like you've explored other options for it to be practically addressed in another way?
I think we are using other options in conjunction with one that we're requesting. I think as parents of a child with special needs, many other options, many other actual requirements, we simply cannot depend on just this barrier to help out. There are many things that we need to do, which kind of gets to the program he's working on, the encouragement of him of doing those kinds of behaviors, and just frankly being alert. So yeah, the answer is yes. It's been sort of a lifelong work that we've been doing, and this is just part of the package that we're hoping to for the safety of him and the citizens.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Hanson.
I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Thomas's question. I think the spirit of that exception, which would allow us to grant an appeal, is that you looked at, not that you're using other things in conjunction with the gate, but that there was no other way to secure your son's safety other than by having this gate. So just to give an example, one thing that it crossed my mind in looking at this was, is there no way to, because there's fences in a lot of places in the property, is there no way to lock the gates to keep him from entering the driveway? That's the kind of thing that we would need to understand. Is there no other way to keep him from entering the driveway?
In my opinion, no practical way, just given, I suppose there are always ways, and obviously work would be open to creativity in doing that, but he is our son who has the right to enjoy the property as well. And so we don't want to restrain him to the point that, you know, his liberty is lost, because it is the fine balance between being able to have him safe, but at the same time feeling like he's a member of the family and a member of the community. That's why I'm saying there could be other ways. They probably wouldn't fit in the spirit of how we want to be treating our son.
I understand that. Well, can
Yeah.
I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
What is the utility of the driveway to him or to anyone else other than to have cars parked there?
So, yeah, I mean, the driveway, we are more ADU owners like ourselves are using the driveways more to park cars than typical families, because obviously we've eliminated the garage, you know, as a space there. So that's the utility of it for our family. He has to get into, so one of the most practical examples of how this presents a problem to us is that he has to go to his adult day program every day. He has to go to places. We do, by the way, love the park down the street. One of the reasons we chose the neighborhood, it's an incredible neighborhood for walking, and you can walk to places. So we definitely will take advantage of that. Obviously, more times than not, when we're leaving the house, we're not going for a walk, we're getting into the car. And so on the way to the car is actually part of the concern. We'll be very careful there, but that's probably a lot of the reasons for that. So he doesn't really have a lot of interest, if I'm understanding your question, of going to the driveway per se. It's just sort of a launching pad to wherever he's going next.
I understand. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Janoff?
So just to clarify, it sounds like what you're needing for your son is a secondary form of containment, especially during the times when you have a vehicular transfer for your son.
Yep.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
exactly. Thank you.
All right, if there are no more questions, I don't see anyone in the audience, or we still don't have anyone on Zoom, Mr. Paulson? Okay, so this would be the opportunity for anyone who has members of the public who want to speak on item 2 on the agenda, but I don't think we have any such people. So we'll move on and give the applicant the appellant another 3 minutes if you choose to do so.
Yeah, thank you for setting the agenda in advance. So I didn't prepare anything necessarily because I thought my opening remarks and sort of the safety focus was clear. And so I just wanted to say that, you know, we're actually fairly new residents of Los Gatos. We're trying to be good citizens. We've invested, I think, well in the property to hopefully make it a good place for us and our neighbors. We're getting to know those neighbors. So yeah, it'll be just being able to have this ability to have extra level of security will be great for us as we continue to enjoy all the good things that Los Gatos has to offer. That's it.
Thank you for those comments. So we'll now close the public portion of the public hearing and ask if any commissioners have questions of staff, wish to comment on the appeal, or introduce the motion for consideration by the commission. Commissioner Janoff.
I'll kick things off. I think it's clear from the appellant's statements made tonight that what he's looking for his family is that secondary containment. And it's really clear to me that the gate needs to contain a vehicle in order to make a safe transfer for the son in particular. So my thinking is that the gate is necessary. The positioning of the gate poses problems for me because of the 13 feet off of Blackwell. Even if you're quick to the handle, there still is a possibility that you're going to be hanging out there while other cars are coming through. And because of the nature of the intersection, you've got that teardrop parklet that prevents you from making a left turn into the driveway, which would be perhaps safer because you wouldn't be potentially obstructing traffic from National Avenue. So my thinking at this time is that I would be in favor of approving a gate, but asking that it be moved to the 18-foot mark, even though that creates a setback intrusion on the front of the house. I think that the height of the gate, given the size of the individual, is reasonable. So my thinking is, if the same gate and functioning and all can be moved back to create a safer ingress from National onto Blackwell into the driveway, that would be a recommendation I'm thinking is a reasonable one at this time.
Thank you for that. I have actually a question for you. If the gate were moved back toward the face of the ADU, would you envision the additional fences on each side of the driveway as part of that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Because you would still need, well, only on the left side, because there's a continuous fence from the sidewalk to the corner of the ADU already. So it would just be, you'd need a 5-foot fence on the left side of the drive.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Respy?
Thank you, Chair. I join 100% with Commissioner Janoff's comments. First off, with respect to fence height, I understand that this fence is 4 feet 3 inches, which is higher than the 3 foot allowed. But again, in this situation, there are security concerns that I think are alleviated with a slightly higher fence. And it seems to me that the purpose of the fence height is to preserve view corridors. And the nature of this fencing is such that you can see clearly through the fence. I don't think it's obstructive in any way. So I would permit the higher fence on the gate. And then with respect to the gate, I believe that's a security concern that we should allow a gate. The location is problematic. Pushing it back to the 18-foot setback, I think, solves the issue. I think it's achievable with one change, pushing it back with the fencing on one side. And I think that addresses the safety concerns for the applicant and the safety concerns for the drivers of Los Gatos. So I would join Commissioner Janoff in her recommendations.
Thank you for that input. Commissioner Hanson?
I have a question for staff. The exception that we're discussing for the special security concern, did you, in your analysis, consider that as a possible exception? You said you couldn't make the findings. I'm just trying to understand, what was thought before we came in.
Sure, thank you for the question. Under review of the original fence height exception, staff wasn't provided the level of detail on Mr. Sesnick's son. So we were just presented with, as you can see in the application, that the son had an illness. And what was looked at was the majority of the property was fenced, and it was just the driveway area.
Very good. Can I also make a comment then? So I actually worked on the fence ordinance. I believe Commissioner Janoff was on the commission with me as well. And to me, this seems like a valid exception for the safety concern. And especially, we appreciate all the information that you shared. And it's not easy to share all that information about your child. So we totally appreciate that to help understand the situation. So, having said that, I think it's reasonable to make the exceptions on the grounds of the special security concern. And it doesn't appear to me that there is another alternative that without the vehicular gate. Having said that, I also see the concern, and we've seen this before on some other applications with the 18 feet. It is a very dangerous area around there, especially not maybe Blackwell, but National Avenue per se is always very busy. So I would concur with my fellow commissioners that I think that the gate, it needs to be looked into to move it back. But I don't think it's problematic to keep a gate that's 4 feet high or 4 foot 3 inches or whatever the exact height is, because I think the whole reason for security is to keep the son safe. There's no reason we can't go an extra foot. So.
Thank you. Other comments? Questions, motions? Commissioner Thomas.
I agree with my fellow commissioners about the height, but I did have a question for staff just about the parking on that street. So I know obviously on the corner there's a red zone to protect the view area, but then from the red zone in front of this property on Blackwell, not on National. Is there parking, like, is it right in front of that area? Is there parking, or is the street parking farther down?
Thank you for the question. I believe street parking is allowed past the red zone. The town engineer, Gary Heap, is available. He may be able to add some clarification.
Okay.
Why don't we hear from the engineer in light of that comment?
Very much. Gary Heap, Parks and Public Works. In looking at the aerial or the street view right now, I do see the red curbing there that is in existence from the corner to the driveway approach. I believe that is there to protect the fire hydrant that is there. If the fire hydrant were not there, parking would be allowed in that area, both on either side of the driveway. But right now, because the hydrant is there, parking is only allowed right now on the east side, or excuse me, the west side of the driveway.
Okay, thank you. So I do have some follow-up comments then about that.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I understand fellow commissioners' concerns about the 18-foot to allow for the traffic. I think that but when I was at the site and seeing the red area and seeing the ability like that you could pull a car over to wait for the gate to open, I am inclined to feel like it is kind of an undue hardship to like require this to be set back. I don't know if there's like truly an added safety benefit that is considered like practically addressed, considering like that I understand that the fence is there, and so I am a little bit struggling with that, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not convinced that I understand that maybe that's not how we can necessarily even approach this, but I do think that I agree with everyone about the height of the fence. I do think that it's like, you know, the way that it is built and structured, you can see through it. I don't have a ton of safety concerns or anything with that. And I completely understand how the like additional physical barriers are something that's like very important to the safety. So I think that we're all on the same page, it sounds like, with considering for the height, a special security concern that exists. But I am just kind of curious to hear a little bit more about why we're feeling like the fence needs to be moved back that 5 feet.
I'd like to ask the Public Works Director to comment on the visibility issue if the gate is not moved back.
Gary Heap, Town Engineer, Park and Public Works. From a visibility, it's not really a visibility standpoint, it's a circulation standpoint. And I believe what the code, the purpose of the code is so that we don't have vehicles hanging out into the travel lane when there's a lane right adjacent to the curb, which is not the case here. So yes, it is in violation. Yes, it would hang out. The vehicle waiting or queuing there would hang out, but it's within the limits of what the parking area would be. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just follow up with that then? So that was my assumption that was the thing. So the car would hang out into the like where a parked car could be. So that's I guess that if my understanding is that, my problem is that like if a car can park there, then people whipping around the corner from National Avenue could run into the back of a car just as easily as they could run into the back of a car pulling into the driveway, from my perspective. But
Thank
if
you.
I'm wrong, then let me know.
Commissioner Janoff has her hand up.
Yeah, I think, just to clarify, the special security concern that I would be willing to find for is related to the Mr. Chesnick's son's needs on the other side of the gate,
Yes.
not so much the public's safety requirements. Okay, so in terms of making the finding to allow for the exception, that's where my thoughts go. With regard to setting the fence, so I think we can all agree that a fence is necessary, or a vehicular gate is necessary. The reason to move it back the 15 feet is to allow a vehicle to clear Blackwell fully as it's waiting for the gate to open. And the circumstance that comes to my mind is this. It seems likely to me that transport might be in the form of a van. It's often that type of transport for individuals. A van is larger than a Mini Coupe or a small car or a small sedan. It's a larger vehicle, and that is likely to be hanging out into the travel lane on Blackwell. And that's the issue that I'm seeing, that Public Works is alerting us to the need for the 18 feet. So we create the 18-foot depth from sidewalk to, or from the property line, whatever the measurement point is, inward. So we allow for 18 feet there, so a vehicle can be on property and not in the travel lane. The gate can open, the vehicle moves in, and there's plenty of space on the other side of the new location of the fence, should it be moved, for that vehicle to park, the gate to close, and Mr. Chesnick's son would be safely able to board the vehicle. So the 18 feet for me is how to keep a vehicle from hanging out in Blackwell for the length of time that it takes the gate to open. Understanding that there may be occasions when you're expecting the vehicle and you might have the gate open, but there may be times when you don't or you forget. And so I think we need to be cognizant of the reason why we have that 18-foot requirement, and it does seem to be a requirement that can be satisfied. At the same time, the appellant's needs are being satisfied.
Thank you. Further comments? Commissioner Thomas.
So I agree and understand, but my understanding from what the town engineer just said, not to bring you back into this, but is that because the lane is not, because there's no bike lane, the lane is not clearly defined on this street because it's just a wide residential street with, you're able to park on the side of the street. So my understanding is that a car, because the sidewalk is so big and there's the, the little parklet kind of area. It's like sidewalk, then planting area, then parking, then travel lane. I feel like it seems like there is enough space for a car to queue and not be hanging out, because I agree that is a concern.
I think.
Thank you.
If I may.
Commissioner Taft, sure.
I think the issue is that there's only 13 feet allowed. I mean, there's only 13 feet available with the present location of the gate. And that's probably not sufficient to accommodate the type of vehicle that, or a range of vehicles that might be traveling in this space.
So it seems like there's a growing consensus, but I want to.
I just want to I do want to clarify this, because I think the 13 feet is from the gate to the actual street, correct? So how wide is the actual, because then there was a car parked beyond that. So if a van is 16 feet long, that's hanging out 3 feet into, which is clearly very close. I mean, how wide is a typical car? Okay, yeah, I guess, yes.
One thing I could offer that might help is that the measurement, the 13-foot measurement and the 18-foot measurement, is taken from the edge of the street. That's where the asphalt would meet the face of the curb. So you're right in that from there would be some area that would be designated for parking, and then the actual vehicular travel lane. And again, the town engineer may be able to expand on that more eloquently than I.
Commissioner Hanson.
I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. We've had a number of times in hearings over time where we bring in Parks and Public Works or some outside expert. And so my personal philosophy on this as a planning commissioner is that I would never second guess the judgment of our town engineer to determine what's safe and not safe in terms of the distance from, and that's why, I would leave it to them to say if 18 feet is the number, then 18 feet is the number that we need to be safe. So I would, for me personally, I wouldn't want to second guess that and try and figure out ways around it. I think it's best to rely on the expertise of our Parks and Public Works because, they own the responsibility for making sure things are safe.
Commissioner Burnett and then Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So again, my concern is National Avenue. This is a rounded corner, and when cars are coming around, they would tend to be closer to the curb. they would be, because of the configuration of it, it's not like a square corner that you come and you, like at an angle. It would be more rounded, which I would feel it would be actually even more dangerous to have a car that's 3 feet out into the roadway waiting to go in. So I would support Commissioner Janoff's and Commissioner Raspi's feelings on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas again.
So thank you. And I do agree that we need to listen to the town engineer. So I would like to know what he has to say, because you did mention that the spirit of this regulation is that we have this much space. But do you feel like where the fence is right now allows for enough space to maintain safety in the spirit of the regulation?
So you're going to put me on the spot, is that what you're saying? Okay, just checking. So what I had stated earlier is the code says 18 feet. My professional judgment is, there's a number of factors that go into it. The parking lane itself is typically 8 feet in width. Given the 2-foot gutter pan, you're looking at 6 foot there, between basically the lip of gutter and where the parked car could park. We've got an encroachment potentially of a little over 4.5 feet into that area. National has a lot of traffic. I don't know if the side street necessarily has a lot of traffic. I don't know about the frequency that we have actually in terms of the use of the gate on a daily basis. Is it once a day? Is it twice a day? Is it every couple days? I don't know the frequency of that. Maybe that's a question for the applicant. In terms of some protocols, in terms of opening and closing that gate, certainly exiting I don't see as an issue. Entering is the problem. They could queue in another area, they could queue in the front, they could queue in the red zone for that matter, while the gate is opening and then swing in. I don't get a sense that there's a huge risk or safety issue with the vehicle that's hanging out within the parking lane for a limited amount of time, again, based on the speed of that gate and how fast it opens. I'm not aware of what the foot per second rate is on that either, or how long that would actually be. But I don't get the sense that this is a huge safety issue.
Thank you.
Very well. Commissioner Janoff.
Thank you. I think one of the things that complicates this particular location is the teardrop parklet that has the effect of making it a one-way lane in. So typically when a car is queuing in a normal 2-lane road, the cars that see the car stopped for the gate are going to go around it. And in this particular location, there's no opportunity to go around the car. It's effectively a 1-lane road. So I do think that in this case, the configuration of the street on Blackwell creates a narrowing point that complicates, and the teardrop, as I recall, continues past the driveway a little bit. So I think it's not just that it's not close to the corner of National. It's quite deep, and my impression is that you couldn't turn left into the driveway from Blackwell. So you really just have that narrow lane. So for me, it does create a potential safety issue. I think the frequency of use is not, I understand the reason it's mentioned, but I think it's a little unfair because we just really don't know. And you don't really want to hamper a property owner to say, well, you said it's only going to be used once a week and now you're using it every day and it's creating a safety issue. So I don't think we need to go down that route. I do think that there are special circumstances related to the configuration of the street and the red zone that create, as I said, a necking, a narrowing of that particular length of Blackwell that would create an issue. And think if you had a car parked on the other side of the driveway, you have nowhere for an oncoming car to go. So if you've got you may have, I don't think a parked car makes any difference, is what I'm saying. You've got a car that's sticking out effectively into the travel lane because of the narrow width of this part of the road. I think it's an issue.
Commissioner Respi.
Thanks, Jaron. I actually have a question for staff. Procedurally, we have 2 issues before us, and it's one appeal. Could we, as a body, grant with respect to part, deny with respect to a part? It seems to me that a consensus is building in that regard. I just want to make sure that what we're talking about is procedurally proper.
I believe so, and the town attorney will also weigh in, I'm sure, but you could also grant the appeal with an added condition to relocate the fence.
Is there a preference, council?
Either way works.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good question. Are we ready for a motion? I think we are. Commissioner Janoff.
Yes, I move to approve the appeal of a Community Development Director decision to deny a fence height exception request for the construction of an automated vehicular gate exceeding the maximum height and with reduced setbacks on property zoned R-18 located at 380 Blackwell Drive, APN 424-12027. And I won't go through the rest of the identifying information. It's included in Exhibit 2. I can make the finding that this is categorically exempt for CEQA, and I can make the required finding for granting a fence height exception that a special security concern exists that cannot be practically addressed without adding a vehicular gate. And my motion would also request that the gate be moved back 5 feet or 4 foot 10 inches, whatever the distance is, to be code compliant in providing the 18-foot for a vehicle to park with outside the closed gate and not hanging out into Blackwell Avenue.
Thank you for that motion. Commissioner Hanson.
I second the motion. And then, before the commission votes, just one thing, I would say that it's conditioned on moving it back 5 feet as opposed to making it a request.
The maker of the motion accepts that change in language, that it is conditioned upon moving the gate back.
The seconder accepts that as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Should we add that the fence height, you said the vehicular gate, but I also think that we should add that the height needs to exceed the 3 foot maximum. Also, yes.
Yes, the maker of the motion accepts that change, that we also approve the existing height of the existing gate.
I agree, but I think you already said that in your motion.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second discussion. Commissioner Burnett?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll get to it. Yeah.
Do you need to add to the motion the side fence added on to the left of the gate? The additional, if the gate is moved back?
I would personally say no. That's at the discretion of the homeowner. Clearly, they're going to want to add that, that side. But I do have a question whether we need to talk about the variance of the setback.
I would probably amend the motion to say it's conditioned on moving the fence back 5 feet and a variance from the, is it an 18-foot requirement?
25-foot requirement.
The
setback.
variance from the 25-foot requirement is approved.
Setback.
And I would add that it would be granting a fence height exception for the fence within that front setback to be greater than the 3 foot limitation, and that you could add that includes additional connecting fencing because of the relocation of the fence, of the gate.
The maker of the motion accepts that language.
I do as well.
Very well. Further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Commissioner Clark is up there.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I personally am torn as to whether I think it's necessary to move the gate back, but it looks to me like the general consensus from the commission is that it does, and so I'm comfortable voting that way, but I don't necessarily think that it's completely warranted.
Thank you for that comment. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. And we'll have to do the roll call this time because Commissioner Clark is not present. So we'll begin with Commissioner Raspy.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
No.
Commissioner Burnett.
Yes.
Commissioner Janoff.
Yes.
And Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Thank you. And the chair also votes for the motion. So that passes with one dissent. And now we move on to, are there appeal rights? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the decision of the Commission can be appealed to Town Council by any interested person as defined by Town Code Section 2910-020 within 10 days on forms available online with fees paid. Final deadline is 4 p.m. on the 10th day.
Thank you for that. So we'll move to other business and look for a report from the Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Chair. One item to share with the Commission this evening, which is that tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. here in this room, we will be having our next Housing Element Advisory Board meeting to discuss the comment letter received from the state on the most recent draft of the town's housing element. As stated, that will be in person in this room, so anyone who wishes to join us would be welcome and invited to come join the discussion and share thoughts.
Thank you for that. And while we have you speaking, can you advise us about the next meeting of the Planning Commission?
The next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for the 28th of June. We do have one item, I believe, currently scheduled for that meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions? Ms. Armour? No. So we'll move on to subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the Commission serve on several town committees. The Conceptual Development Advisory Committee, that should be, GPAC, which is now the Housing Element Advisory Board, and the Historic Preservation Committee. And we'll start with CDAC and Ms. Hanson.
The Conceptual Development Advisory Committee met this afternoon to hear, and for those that don't know what the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee is, it's not a decision-making or recommending body. We simply hear about people's ideas for projects and give feedback. And it's not binding on the decision-making process in any way. So we were presented with a potential idea for developing 143 to 151 East Main Street to convert existing building to a mixed-use development with below-grade parking and 3 stories of residential, and it would be 26 units was the proposal that they were considering, and we had a very good discussion about that and the architecture and what it might do for the housing element and whatnot. So we'll look forward to hearing more in the future.
Thank you for that. I'll just add that the proposal was for retail on the first floor, right?
Mixed use included the retail on the first floor in addition to the residential.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Housing Element Advisory Board. The report tomorrow, okay?
Yeah, there's no, we haven't met since March, and so tomorrow.
We have a lot of work to do tomorrow. And Historic Preservation? No report?
There was no meeting.
Okay. If there are no more commission matters that Commissioner wants to discuss, then I'll express my gratitude to Mr. Sesnick and for staff and to my fellow commissioners for their work tonight. And I will call the meeting adjourned.